folks, and Happy New Year. Welcome back from us at Unfinished Business TV. I am your host, Jeff Galashaw at Unfinished B2. And with me, as always, is Andre Joseph of AJ Epics Productions.
Happy New Year! Beef jerky time!
Yes, it's always beef jerky time, depending how hungry you are. But this is a kind of a special episode. It's one of our first of the new year, 2024. But also, we have decided instead of like maybe catching up with the current movies and releases, because it is January, so kind of a slow period for you either to catch up on last year's film or see what the studios are offering in January, which is usually, their D Squad material. Um, we're going to talk about holiday movies and in general, I guess you could say we'll probably more focus on Christmas and Thanksgiving movies, and preferably movies that aren't conventionally maybe holiday movies, but seem to take place during that time or have been adapted for those by many film fans. But you never know. We might even talk about movies like, a Valentine's Day themed movie or, Mother's Day themed movies. Every holiday has been represented, especially with now that Eli Roth has made his Thanksgiving movie. So now Thanksgiving has an official movie in the title. I guess since it was the holidays, I thought of this subject because I kept seeing so many people have debates online about of course the infamous one, Die Hard's a Christmas movie. So I was interested in what movies have really been either set during that time but aren't conventionally like holiday movies. Obviously, Die Hard, it takes place over the holiday, but it's an action movie at heart, and you have so much violence and all that a lot of people are like, no, that's more an action movies. But it does take place over Christmas, and in its own way, it does have a heartwarming ending. So I mean, and also we already settled this debate. We had one of the screenwriters of Die Hard on our show who said unequivocally that it is a Christmas movie. So I'm like, so for those who tried to send me an article saying even Steven D'Souza finally says that Die Hard, we broke that story. So that's why I used to be watching our show more. We just don't brag. You have to watch our stuff to find out these news.
And subscribe.
Yes, please, definitely. But also, other than Die Hard, everybody seems to forget that screenwriter Shane Black, most of his screenplays revolve around the Christmas holiday, and those are all action movies. And I was just shocked how when I mentioned some of these titles, that a lot of people are like, "Oh, that's a Christmas movie." Like Lethal Weapon takes place around the holidays. Hello, a man gets shot through and his eggnog spills. How can you forget that? Andre, what are some I guess unconventional holiday movies that maybe you've noticed that no one really talks about? And
Well, I mean, there's so many. One that at one point I said was a Christmas movie, and somebody corrected me, was Ghostbusters 2. That's actually a New Year's Eve movie when you really think about it, because everything is centered around Vigo coming back through the painting to go after Dana Barrett's baby, and it has to happen at 12 midnight for him to come back to life and take over the world. So, yeah, the whole revolving around, oh, the end of the world's going to happen on New Year's Eve is something that, maybe should be celebrated a little bit more often, even though it is the weaker of the three Ghostbusters movies, and I'm not even going to count the one with the girls. Sorry, it ain't a Ghostbusters movie as far as I'm concerned. But that one definitely stands out as like a non-traditional holiday picture. Another one that probably stands out, believe it or not, and I realized this the other day, was Invasion USA with Chuck Norris. Now, here's a movie that is not necessarily considered a Christmas movie, but it's set during the holidays. You have a terrorist attack all over the country. You got this one man army in Chuck killing everybody, and you have, I guess, the big climax is in a shopping mall on Christmas where people are being attacked and shot up. And surprisingly, this was like the year after that incident at McDonald's when people were getting killed, and they had to like curb some stuff from there, like, oh, violence in movies is getting going too far. So that's another one. And then you have movies that are not Christmas movies, but just for whatever reason, the theme is there in some way, shape, or form. Like a movie we reviewed a while back, Running Scared. Now, nobody mentions Christmas, there's no Christmas music in it, but you see in the third act when they go into the state building, it's littered with Christmas decorations. So apparently, this movie, was shot during the holiday season, and so they didn't even try to hide it. And when you really think about it, it is a Christmas movie in the sense of Billy Crystal getting back with his ex-wife, him and Gregory Hines like wanting to just say, what the hell with this job, let's go retire to Florida. But then as things go on, they realize, what, the city really still needs us. So that idea of perspective and being very reflective during the holiday season kind of fits with that picture. So there's so many that we could obviously go through, and then there's ones that are very on the nose, like Reindeer Games with Ben Affleck, where they tried to do the Die Hard thing unsuccessfully, although it's got some fun moments in it and some interesting twists. But yeah, those are some of the ones that are on the nose. And then recently, a movie I saw, Silent Night, tried to really do it up. John Woo's latest epic picture with no dialogue, although there's some background noise. And so that's something where they want to like maybe try to make the next big Die Hard type of movie, as well as what was the one with David Harbour where he plays
Oh,
Santa? Violent Night.
Violent Night.
Yeah, which I think we talked about a while back, but that's another one that they took the Die Hard joke and they dialed it up to 11 there. So yeah, well, I mean that those are my thoughts so far. There's plenty I could go into.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, this for some odd reason, this year was the year I really sat down and watched a lot of holiday movies. I'm not usually a person who does that, but like this was the first year I ever saw the movie White Christmas from beginning to end with Bing Crosby and Danny Kaye. Like Danny Kaye, but throughout the movie, you're just thinking Bing Crosby is somewhere, either when he's not on screen, somewhere drinking or beating one of his kids. I still haven't watched, what is it, The Preacher's Wife with Denzel Washington,
I've
Courtney
seen
B.
Preacher's Wife. Yeah.
I always see bits and pieces of the movie, but I've never watched it from beginning to end. And it's a shame because it's one of, the few Whitney Houston performances movie, that we have, where I guess there's no controversy around the role with her in it.
Well, let's get into that because I remember when The Preacher's Wife came out, and that was one that my mom had to see because Whitney Houston and Denzel Washington together, that was like a match made in heaven. And it was one of the few Denzel Washington comedy performances with that mix of romance in there because you don't see Denzel doing that stuff today. And basically, what's the premise? You have Courtney B. Vance playing this preacher whose church is about to be taken over by this mega pastor played by Gregory Hines in one of his few villain roles, and one of the few only time he ever got to work with Denzel and all these other stars in it. And it's the remake of I forget the original movie's
I
name, but it
think
was
it's the Bishop's Wife.
Bishop's Wife. That's correct. Yeah, Denzel playing like the guardian angel that comes in to try to help Whitney Houston and Courtney B. Vance, and has kind of a thing for Whitney. And it's a charming movie. You could see the passion that went into it and the gospel soundtrack by Whitney. Of course, it was littered with its later stuff that we found out later with her issues. And, she had some issues making the movie, not just because of her drug problem, but also she didn't believe herself as being married to Courtney B. Vance. And, you know, hey, that wasn't her type of man. She had Bobby Brown for those few
Oh
years.
yes, such a
Yeah,
better. I'd be
King
like
of Swing.
to all those people. I'd be like, compare Courtney B. Vance and look at the Cool It now. Look at little Bobby with his slicked back Jerry
Yeah.
curl, and it's like that's my man. But if I don't stick with Courtney B. Vance, I'd never be attracted to him.
And I think it's the only acting performance of Lionel Richie who just appears out of nowhere in this movie. He's like this, I guess he owns like a nightclub for her to sing at. And, this is when he was trying to make his comeback after the long hiatus he had in the early 90s. And so he didn't act after that, which is a shame because I think he probably would have had some chops if he had kept going.
I feel like if Lionel Richie had kept making appearances in movies, it would have been just like that, some kind of awkward thing, like, like, hey kid, it's Lionel Richie in this role. Sort of like what was it? Even though nobody saw it, Smokey Robinson in Hollywood Homicide as a cab
Oh,
driver,
yeah.
or in the better part, when you had David Johansen and Scrooge, another holiday movie, as the cab driver. But at that point, he seemed to have been moving more into acting anyway. After it's getting hot, hot, hot was such a hit, and unfortunately, his next movie was Car 54. Where are you?
Yeah.
So, but no, also, when I also saw Miracle on 34th Street for the first time ever from beginning to end. I've never seen the remakes, but I can understand why it's a beloved classic, but I have to be honest, the first half kind of slow until we get to the courtroom scenes. Then it becomes more interesting, but I know it's like a heartwarming film. And my mother's favorite film is It's a Wonderful Life of all time. That's her favorite movie. I will admit I've seen bits and pieces, never from beginning to end, but I think for her it's like how we grew up. The Wizard of Oz was on television every year, and we just watch it. I think that's It's a Wonderful Life for her. Um, some holiday movies. I mean, obviously there's the horror movies like Better Watch Out, which is a surprising little thriller that actually is perfect for Christmas holidays. And like you said, Reindeer Games, a movie I really wanted to like,
Me
but
too.
there's something about the film. It's way too predictable, so that when it offers surprises, you already see them coming. You know, and it's also one of two bad Ben Affleck movies. There's also, what was it? It's not Christmas with the Cranks. Surviving
Oh,
Christmas.
yeah, Survivor Chris.
Christina Applegate, James Gandolfini. Great cast, horrible movie.
And they put that out during Halloween, as I remember, because they just had no faith in Ben Affleck at that time.
Well, I think he had just gotten his veneers because I remember him smiling throughout the movie. He had the same stupid grin on his face. I mean, they're the fun Christmas movies. Like I remember seeing Love Actually in theaters around Christmas, and it's heartening to know that it's now considered like a holiday classic. But also, oh man, I Love Actually. A friend of mine loves because this came out around I think either Christmas or Thanksgiving the year it came out. Just Friends with
Mhm.
Ryan Reynolds and Amy Smart. I like the movie. I think it's the movie that really showcases Anna Faris's comedic talent. But separate from that, in a few scenes, I really can't get into the movie. I mean, it's not a bad movie, but it just never achieved legendary status for me. But one of the films that happens around Christmas, I feel no one ever talks about The Ref with Dennis
Oh, yeah.
Leary, Judy Davis, and maybe this is why Kevin Spacey. But this is one of Ted Demi's films, and I think it's like one of his lost classics. Unfortunately, he didn't have too many movies on his resume, but I love this film. It's smart. It's bitter, but it's also funny. And I mean, it wasn't big before Kevin Spacey got canceled, but I can now imagine it getting even more buried because of the Kevin Spacey scandal, and also from teenagers wondering who's Dennis Leary. you know,
I remember when the ref was coming out, and I was confused by it because the teaser trailer was just Dennis Leary looking into the camera, and he was doing his comedy bit where I guess he was like trashing every other movie that was out at that time or something along those lines. But he was doing his trademark shtick, and they tell you nothing about what this movie is about. You don't see any footage, you don't see the other actors. Only later do you find out, oh, it's a guy that holds his family hostage on Christmas. Like, what the hell?
I mean, look. that was back in the hype machine days, where I guess he was the hot comedian, and they were guess like using that to hype the movie because nobody knew who Kevin Spacey or Judy Davis really were. And the thing I guess with that movie that I find interesting is you have Dennis Leary, but for like the first third of the movie, he doesn't talk. And then finally, when he does, half the time it's either threatening or a sassy one-liner to one of the other. And I mean, come on, Linus O'Connor as Kevin Spacey's mother. One of the all-time evil lady roles until she became sweet again with While You Were Sleeping. And now, While You Were Sleeping, I just remember it happened in Chicago. Did that movie have happened around any particular holiday? And
I don't recall because I've never seen the movie. I've only seen the trailers, and I remember Sandra Bullock. That was like her first big thing after the net. So I want to say it took place during the holidays, but I honestly don't recall.
Okay, I know there's a Christmas scene in it because there's a Christmas tree joke in the film, but I don't remember specifically. I know the movie takes place over a bunch of time, but I don't really recall you could really consider it a holiday movie. Um, Again, to go with unconventional Christmas movie, another Shane Black movie, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang,
Hmm.
takes place around Christmas. And then if you really wanted to, Long Kiss Goodnight takes place around Christmas. And one film that when I mentioned people were shocked, I consider a Christmas movie, Catch Me If You Can with
Yeah.
Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Hanks and directed by Steven Spielberg. That year, I remember it coming out around the holidays. I actually liked it more than I liked Gangs of New York at the time. And I also, all the biggest like heartbreaking scenes in the film happen around the holidays. And yeah,
Yeah, I remember like seeing in the theater and really being heartbroken when he came back to his house. He's looking through the window. His mom, she had remarried and had the daughter. And because the whole movie, his father's supposed to be his big hero up until the point when he passes away. So it's just that with the Nat King Cole Christmas songs playing was just devastating. And I even remember too at that time that I wasn't a Leonardo DiCaprio fan because everybody, Titanic, all the girls were sweating him. So this is like the first Leo movie I saw in the theater. And I remember coming out of it saying, you know, if that guy could do like Brad Pitt did with Fight Club and he plays more grittier parts, I think I could be a fan of his. And then sure enough, a few years later, The Departed and Blood Diamond came out the same year. And that's when I became a fan.
see, I have this is sad. I've been a fan probably since Growing Pains. Because they always kept mentioning, here's the big young thing. And I was like, I can see it, but he just needs better roles because it was like The Quick and the Dead. And everybody's like, oh, Sharon Stone paid so much for him to be part of the movie. And I was like, he's okay in the role, but keep in mind, I didn't like the movie. So I was just like, he's okay. But then when he did What's Eating Gilbert Grape, that's when I was like, there you go.
Mhm.
And even in Basketball Diaries, they tried, but who knew Mark Wahlberg would be so good in that movie? But yeah, like you said, that scene is the scene I remember the most from Catch Me If You Can. It's just like so devastating. And rewatching the film recently, I don't know, I don't know how often you're on Film X, as they call it, Twitter. But where they say the villain of the movie, and then another picture of the real villain of the movie. And I know it's based on a true story, but this movie, his mother should be the true villain of this movie.
Yeah, I
Because
agree.
as soon as the father just loses everything, she's already, sizing up Cat Everett of all people. And then these two old ass people have a kid, a newborn, and a nice house in the, I guess, suburbs. And then he runs there and he doesn't even really ever get any closure with his mother throughout the film. Maybe it's in the book or the memoir that it's based on, but it's like, damn, that movie's horrible. And every Christmas in that movie, he calls Tom Hanks's character,
Yep.
because he has no one else really to talk to or who I guess really knows his true self. So, and then they form some kind of, surrogate father-son bond relationship.
Well, that
So
whole movie is a father-son dilemma tale. I think bigger than any Spielberg movie that came before that.
exactly, and the beautiful part is no one expected it. We thinking this is gonna be a chase, con man movie, and it's like it's got all this depth. This is where I give Spielberg credit as a filmmaker because he's known as more for all these big budget films, and he delivers usually when expected. But then sometimes he'll make these films that these seem typical, and then it's like oh my god, this has so much art and so many hidden themes. When it's not like what was that one with Tom Hanks, the passenger, the tourist is
Oh, The Terminal.
yeah, the terminal, and it's not something like that. It's just like okay, this is just pure entertainment.
Mhm.
you know, um, I also saw 8-Bit Christmas with Neil Patrick Harris, which feels like it really wants to be a Christmas story. Of course, the pinnacle of most of our generation's Christmas movies. But it kind of falls short. It gets you want that toy you want, that you'll go through all this stuff for, and especially for kids my age, when Nintendo came out, how much everybody wanted it and how shitty the Power Glove was. But I mean, you have the Wizard for that too, but
Yeah.
that's not a holiday movie. But I mean, it's an earnest attempt, but whereas a Christmas Story, it felt heartfelt. This film, 8-Bit Christmas, it feels a little manufactured, you know? Um,
Well,
and
the better version of that movie is Jingle All the Way with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Now, there's a movie.
I,
Look, dude, I mean, you had a really good teaser trailer where they're hyping up every villain that Arnold ever faced, and now he's got his biggest threat ever. He has to find this one rare toy for his kid. And keep in mind, this was 1996. Power Rangers was a big thing. And I remember my parents going nuts in every Toys R Us in Staten Island to try to find where are the Power Ranger toys because you could not find them once the show hit. Before that, they were easy to get because nobody knew what it was. And then after that, forget it. They were flying off the shelves. So it's a movie that, yeah, at the time I was like, it's okay. But then it kind of grows on you because it's so relatable and the one-liners by Arnold that are constant memes online and on YouTube. And you got Sinbad, and Sinbad's very good in this. I'm not gonna lie. Like Sinbad, people sleep on that man, but he was a funny dude that I just think was so charming and so relatable as a comedian and just so fun. Like I wish if he was healthy enough, I would love to have him on the show because he is that cool.
I can't share your love of Jingle All the Way. It has a great premise, trying to get that last minute toy, and even it gives you a foil in Sinbad who's just as tall as Arnold Schwarzenegger. So physically, he can't be imposing or imposed by Arnold. But I just guess the follow through to me wasn't so strong. And then you have the weird, like smarmy Phil Hartman.
He's the really bad guy, though. Put the cookie down. No.
So weird. Oh, come on. That's just a rip of his line from kindergarten. So he's like, he's doing callbacks already. Before that film even really that old.
You
But
got James Belushi doing a favor to cameo as a dirty Santa with the fake toys. Is that working for the WWE? The Big Show?
Belushi is the only funny. I don't believe I'm saying this. Belushi is the only funny part of that movie. I'm like, you can give me a Belushi spin-off movie of Jingle All the Way. I want to explore this underground Santa world. That I would like to see, but I can't say I'm a fan. But I mean, it's fine, perfect for the holidays. Because again, it's stupid enough for no offense to children. It's silly enough for kids, but then it's good for the parents who can identify with it. I don't know as much now with online shopping being as big as it is, but I figure they can identify with that. Um,
One last thing I'll say about this movie, Rita Wilson was kind of smoking hot in it.
you just have a thing for Rita Wilson.
Not lately, but back then, like when suddenly she was getting all these roles, it was like, yeah, she's quite the looker.
Well, it's sort of like, well, I remember, I think the last time she really played a lead role was when Nora Ephron made that Steve Martin movie, Mixed Nuts.
Oh yeah, another Christmas movie.
Hey, I look, I'm not gonna lie and say it's good, but I could see what they were attempting, but that was during Nora Ephron's like kind of remake period of other movies. So that's why, and since it's based on a French film, I can understand why that might have not transferred to America in its adaptation. But I mean, come on, you got Steve Martin. How could you fail? You had so much comedic talent surrounding you in that movie. You have John Stewart. You have Parker Posey. You have
Adam
Steve Martin.
Sandler.
Adam Sandler. You have. I'm trying to remember who was the landlord or their boss.
Wasn't Martin Short in that?
That doesn't help with all that, at least to me. He might have been. Again, I haven't seen it since it probably came out, so I don't remember it that fondly. I just remember I really want to like this movie, but it's working against itself so hard for me to like it. And I like Nora Ephron. Leah Schreiber in one of his first major role in drag. So he went, I guess right now, the black man Cat Williams can't stay in role by starting off playing a dress. But hello, he's Ray Donovan. Nobody's gonna ever come up to him like, "Yeah, man, remember when you started wearing a dress?" I'd just be like, "Hey, I remember when you were still mumbling through most of your roles." Now see, there is a perfect sequel that they've tried to do with Friday the 13th. One of these slasher films from one of the great horror icons, but set it during the holidays or in snow. Let's see Jason move through that forest with ice or black ice on the ground. And they did write a script. It almost was made, but unfortunately, it did not get made. But I'm like, I would, since they're scrambling for Scream. We'll talk about that on a future episode.
Yeah, we gotta talk about that.
They should maybe set it up for the holidays. Because I mean, I saw this very little strange horror Christmas theme movie. It's a Wonderful Knife with Justin Long playing some kind of mixture of Donald Trump, Lindsey Graham slasher film. He's the villain, the mayor of the town, and it has to do with like different time warp, different dimensions. It's got Joel McHale in it. It's not bad. It's a Shudder movie. Okay, it's cute for what it is. If you're watching it at home, obviously it's not too bad. Now, if I had to pay for this, then maybe I'd be like, I don't know, but it's fine with what it is. That was like one of the more unconventional Christmas movies. I mean, even though it doesn't really have it, I don't remember it taking place around the holidays. And also, thank you to viewer Brad Watkins, who also helped me with some of these movies and try to find some unconventional ones. Lady Snowblood, the Japanese revenge movie, has a lot of Christmas visuals, but it's not really a holiday. I mean, Gary Marshall made the end of his career all about making movies about holidays, Mother's Day, Valentine's Day. I don't think he ever got around to Halloween.
Yeah, that would have been weird.
Considering Gary Marshall's career, I don't think so. It would have been a happy Halloween movie, probably starring Vanessa Hudgens. And he would have gotten Julia Roberts in it by reminding her, "Hey, who got you an Oscar nomination for Pretty Woman? You know me." Did Penny Marshall ever really direct a holiday movie? She seemed like she'd be perfect for one.
Only The Preacher's Wife is the closest I think she ever got.
Darn, I'm like, because I love Penny Marshall as a filmmaker, but all of her films kind of have that holiday feel. I guess because they're feel good movies, but also have their dramatic moments. So, and I mean,
Even a movie like Big could technically, even though it's not set during Christmas, it has the feel of a movie that probably would be set around that time. And part of the reason I say that is, like when FAO Schwartz used to be open, not only did you still have the big piano everybody remembers, but I think when they were doing the Broadway play, they had the actual like the Genie arcade thing, and that's have an actor inside as the Zoltar, and that used to freak people out. Like I got freaked out when the guy just walked out of the booth. So they always sort of like tried to tie it in with Christmas, even though it's not a Christmas movie.
Um, yeah, because I remember seeing Big on Broadway. I don't remember that much about it, but I remember the show. That was back when everything could have been just a Broadway. Still, kind of any hit movie they
Yeah.
try to make into a holiday film. Well, there's always like the infamous Thanksgiving movies, like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Now you have Thanksgiving. I mean, if you want, there's even a weird Josh Duhamel, like the was it like Buddy Games that they made into a game show that takes place around Thanksgiving. Um, can you think of anything like other than obviously like Christmas? And that's the easiest, but any other unconventional other holiday films? Like I guess it's any movie with mothers bonding will be considered a Mother's Day film. So you have like things like Stepmom or was it Mom's Night Out and stuff like that. And for father again, like you said, like with Catch Me If You Can, not only can you watch that on Christmas, you can watch it on Father's Day. And I feel like you can also watch movies like Frequency on Father's Day, even though obviously it doesn't take place around Father's Day because it's about, father son bonding. But I'm like, and I guess, oh, The Family Stone, but again, that's another Christmas movie.
Well, if you want to talk about Father's Day movies, Over the Top with Sylvester Stallone is like the ultimate Father's Day movie. I mean, a man trying to bond with his son in the midst of arm wrestling. I mean, that's as Father's Day as you can get. And Stallone also had some other movies that you could consider to be holiday movies. The first Rocky, you have it set in Christmas. The fight happens on New Year's Day, January 1st. And then they come back a year later for Rocky 2 and they have the rematch, I think on New Year's Day from what I remember, or it might have been like later in the year. Um, but that one definitely stands out. Rocky 4, the fight's on Christmas Day, December 25th in Russia, and it came out in November of 85. So that's totally a holiday movie in itself. And the fifth one had a Christmas scene in it. So he always got a way to tie in the holidays with the Rocky movies in some way, shape, or form.
Well, he made an American icon hero. So I guess he's like, okay, we're going to put this tie this all to Christmas somehow. So every year people will want to watch these movies on Christmas, including my director's cut where I cut out the robot.
And weirdly enough, Cobra's a Christmas movie because if you go into the supermarket, you see a bunch of Christmas trees in there.
You with that? You got to break up Cobra because it's Stallone somehow. Like,
It doesn't snow everywhere in the United States, It could be brisk and still be Christmas.
I've seen Lethal. I've seen Fame Black movies. So I know, but I'm just like, Stallone. I mean, yeah, like you said, and over the top. Yes, where he's running from a mad rich Robert Loggia, who seems like he's 80 years old forever in every movie. And
Oh, okay. Another movie that nobody considers as a Halloween film, but it actually set during Halloween and fits with the theme. Tightrope with Clint Eastwood. Think
okay,
about it, because he's hunting after a killer doing S&M murders in New Orleans, and it's happening right around Halloween. And there's a whole scene where Clint Eastwood's taking his girls out trick or treating, and the killer's dressed up like a clown, not knowing it's him. So the dark themes of that movie, and it's set during Halloween, it makes it a perfect Halloween movie. Even though kids definitely can't watch it because there's so much sex in it.
I'm shocked Charles Bronson never made a holiday movie, considering he said yes to almost everything.
Um, he did do a holiday movie, but it was made for TV. It was called Yes, Virginia, There's a Santa Claus.
Oh yes.
That's what he was trying to soften up his image after his wife had passed away. And here he was, him and Richard Thomas. I forget who Richard Thomas played in it, but Bronson was like a guy writing letters as Santa, even though he was really just a guy who lost his wife and, I guess was sort of atoning for it by bringing this miracle to children all over the country. Um, you can find it. It's on YouTube. But yeah, one of the rare non-action Bronson movies of the later part of his career.
See, my thing is, if I could cast anybody, like if there was a time around the time they were making Bad Santa, if Charles Bronson was a little bit younger, he would have been perfect in Bad Santa. Or I'm going to say something surprising, considering my history with this person, Gene Hackman in Bad Santa.
Oh, that would have been fun.
Exactly. It would have been better than Welcome to Mooseport.
Mhm.
That's the film you go out on, Hackman. And
Is French Connection considered a Christmas movie from that opening scene of him dressed as Santa chasing the perp?
I say I'll allow it because it has kind of a fucked up theme in the beginning. And it was like, if this is how we're starting off, let's see where it goes. It would be in a perfect world, if this wasn't based on a true case, it would have started on Christmas and ended on New Year's Eve. And be like, we made the bust in a week. That would have been a perfect, then French Connection, and then you could do the reverse for a French Connection too. It starts on Mother's Day, the bust is by Father's Day, and so that would be some weird kind of link. I've always said I would want to see a Brian De Palma Halloween movie. And
Yeah, I'm a little shocked. I can't think of anything he's done that was set during a holiday at all. Like, I mean, obviously, any of his thrillers, like Dress to Kill, Carrie, could easily be considered Halloween movies. They're not during Halloween. But this guy would be right for doing like a Christmas movie that's dark and chilling and violent. It's a little surprising he never did that, as far as I can recall.
well, Blowout, doesn't the ending happen on New Year's Eve
I think
with
it's
all
New
the
Year's Eve.
fireworks? Mm,
It's either New Year's Eve or sometimes I mix up with 4th of July.
no, I think it because they're wearing jackets and coats, so I think it's New Year's Eve. Viewers tell us we might be wrong. But I
Oh, here's a 4th of July movie,
don't know.
Drop Zone with Wesley Snipes.
Okay. Thought you were gonna say Tammy with Melissa McCarthy. Gonna say. No, that is we've reviewed Drop Zone, so both kind of fans of it. I have no problem with it being a 4th of July movie. It's fun, It's Wesley Snipes in his element.
Yeah.
Trying to think some more. What are some
Money
more?
Train is set during Christmas and New Year's.
Hmm. I'd be like, no, I can't. Unfortunate.
It's
There,
about brotherhood.
Brotherhood,
Yeah, him and Woody Harrelson, they were raised as brothers.
Money Train.
Yeah, Money Train.
Oh, it sounded like said Brotherhood. I'm like, what Brotherhood? It's man, like, is it the sequel to Fatherhood with Patrick Swayze?
Oh God, let's not talk about that.
One day we'll buy it.
Mm.
That should have been maybe a good back to school movie. Hey, I remember it coming out at the end of summer, Fatherhood. So it would have been like back to school with Patrick Swayze and his 2 wayward kids.
That was like when everybody stopped hiring him.
I didn't see that's the whole thing. Patrick Swayze gets a bad rap. He was actually a good actor.
Yeah.
He just unfortunately when he came along, he wasn't getting the best scripts, but everybody still remembers half of those movies other than Dirty Dancing. It's just that unfortunately Fatherhood ain't it. And now he'll kind of be always remembered for playing the pedophile preacher in Donnie Darko role.
I don't think so.
I don't know. That has such a cult following behind it. Non-holiday movie, though it does have Halloween in the center of it. But I'm just like, it's
Well, I think because we could go on all day on this. So
mm,
let's at least wrap up with a recent release that we can review, and that's Candy Cane Lane with Eddie Murphy.
uh, that's the one you picked.
It's new. People want to hear what our thoughts are because we're both Eddie Murphy fans.
um, I will say with Candy Cane Lane, This is a movie. It's cute. Don't get me wrong. It's cute. But anybody could have starred in this movie. It doesn't have the Eddie Murphy, riffing, improvising. It's just Eddie Murphy back in family film mode and really just doing whatever the part requires. I don't even know if that Prince line was really his or if it was just in the script. It's cute. Jillian Bell's okay. Pimp Daddy, David Allen Greer in the film is okay. I mean, I like the miniatures.
That was the only highlight for me of that film. I agree with you 100% about Eddie. He was very subdued and pretty much doing the same family movie shtick that he'd been doing all through the 2000s. So it wasn't anything special. I had high hopes because it was Reginald Hudlin directing Boomerang Reunion. Like, okay, maybe he's going to have some energy here, and he doesn't. But I like the miniature, like Nick Offerman and the other actors. I thought that was cute. I thought that was kind of the highlight. And it made me kind of think this should have been a Robert Zemeckis movie. Here's a guy that's been doing Christmas movies left and right in the last couple of years, and that would have totally been up his alley. And I could have seen him work with Eddie Murphy on something like that.
Yeah, I would have hoped the script would have been a little bit better, only because it seems like everybody else, other than maybe the main family, are morons. Like his
Yeah.
neighbors, their friends, even like the dark scene where he gets fired by Trevante Rhodes in a bit role for no reason.
Yeah, that
I
was out of
thought,
left field.
yeah, I thought he was going to be in a movie more, but it was just like, oh, just one scene, okay. Ken Marino playing his neighbor yet best friend yet rival. That was like weird. His role and Stephen Tobolowsky like only has one scene in this movie, but like anytime he was interacting with the figurines, I was like, this works. Even
Mhm.
the demented Jillian Bell as this vengeful elf works, but everything else, it was another thankless role for Tracy Ellis Ross. She didn't really have much to do.
But she was likable.
Yeah, well, Tracy Ellis Ross is always likable though. I've never been like watching her in a movie like what a
Yeah,
bitch,
no.
So she's always likable, which might be one of the reasons why they cast her. The kids, I guess they were the requisite cute. With
The
his
little
daughter.
daughter was cute.
Yeah, well, I mean, the son had his dreams.
Yeah.
He wasn't the smartest, but he could mix a beat though. It's DC Young Fly there. I don't know. I'm like all the young comedians. That's who you pick. Hey, maybe he was the best at the audition. And then even the weird TV anchors, the white guy and the heavy-set
Yeah.
black woman. That was like it. The final scene with them that worked, but everything before that was like, okay, I understand this is to move the movie along, but you guys try being a little funny. And I mean, it's good because it's one of the rare African American centered Christmas holiday movies. So I like it for that. I just wish it could be better. This is the kid who loved Christmas, with Sammy Davis Jr. But that was
Eddie
horrible.
produced.
Hey, that was his last great role, unless you want to count the Cosby Show.
Well, he's in Tap. I think Tap was his last really good part as Gregory Hines' mentor.
I'm going with the kid who saved Christmas. Great tap scenes. Rest of the movie, what?
Well, yeah, the whole cat burglar thing was kind of like lame.
Yeah, it was like if you made that today, you could just center it maybe around him just being, just getting out of jail, kind of a criminal, but center it around maybe therapeutically the tap scene and the romance.
Yeah, and just trying to get his career back on track, and the dark stuff is trying to like pull him back.
Exactly, and that would have like maybe gotten Gregory Hines at least a Golden Globe nomination at the time.
Something he deserved it.
Yeah, because he's like unsung in like film history. I guess because he'll always be linked more to the 80s and 90s than any other period. I mean, you had the Cotton Club, which should have like blown him up, and unfortunately that was a bomb. And and then less said about some of his 90s output, the better. Eve of Destruction, especially.
Yeah, nobody knew how to use him at that point.
That's just a weird movie all around. Maybe someday we'll do it as a deep dive.
Yeah,
But is there anything else you want to say about Candy Cane Lane? And like, would you
no,
recommend it?
um, Honestly, I can't. I mean, yes, it's cute and there's things about it that I like, but I don't think it's a movie I'm going to go back to every year during the holidays. I'm
Exactly.
more inclined to go back to like Scrooged or Christmas Story, um, even like of course, Die Hard, Batman Returns. Like, I'll go back to that stuff. Not so much, something that's more like recent that really is just like you digest it and then it just goes out of your system.
Glad you mentioned Batman Returns, one of the darkest Christmas movies.
And that's a movie, honestly, that should not have been released during the summer when it came out. Because I always just, because of that association with the holiday season, it feels like it should have been released around Christmas. So maybe people would have calmed down with the darker shit, not lose their McDonald's tie-in.
Well, the same thing with Edward Scissorhands. Even though no holiday
Yeah.
is expressed all that snow, and it was released around the holidays, it feels like a Christmas
The
movie.
Danny Elfman music alone makes it feel like a Christmas movie.
Oh, I love that score.
Yeah.
But as for Candy Cane Lane, like you said, it's disposable. It's like it's fast food. It's good in the moment, but an hour or two later, it's like, oh what? Oh yeah, I did see that movie. Like I said, it's a shame because it feels again like Eddie was moving forward. Now let's take a back.
Yeah, you people came out and it just everything went to crap. And we will talk about that Beverly Hills Cop trailer in the next episode.
Yeah, it just feels like also maybe he had to do this film so that they'd approve, Beverly Hills Cop 4. One of those, do one for them, then you could do one for yourself, even if it is more expensive, But at least that's what I like to think in my mind, Hey, Eddie, you survived the Cat Williams. So that ends our business for this week. But as you know, we always have unfinished business. And I have to ask all of you, have you seen The Long Kiss Goodnight? If not, why not? Because it's fucking awesome. Andre, other than the film you already just praised, what film would you tell the people they should see?
Have you seen another Shane Black movie, The Nice Guys? If not, why not? Because it's fucking awesome.
I agree. And that ends this episode. We'll see you next time.